Hi, I'm Rodrigo Santoro, and I play Hector Escaton in Westworld. You are watching The Week in Westworld.
You got that, didn't you?
That's
I did. A bit of a coup.
He's very nice, the Rodrigo Santoro, who plays Hector, and he is genuinely as supernaturally handsome in real life as he is in the show. So so thanks for that. I'm sure he's watching 100%. I'm sure he's hooked on every word.
And that's a nice segue into you and me, supernaturally handsome.
That's true.
Let's discuss episode 3 of Westworld. So we saw this opening scene, big 10-minute pre-credit scene, which introduced us to the first new park we've ever seen.
Yeah, Park 6, and it's a really cool move because the whole build-up to season 2 has been about Shogunworld, the Samurai World, which was teased at the end of season 1, and when we were going to see that, and that's been in the trailers, that's been in all this preview footage. Everyone's been really excited by it, and then we haven't even seen that yet, and they just sort of casually drop in Park 6, this other park. Which is a brilliant move. It's kind of very Westworld, and it's really interesting. The choice of using that kind of British Raj period, which I'm kind of assuming is when that's supposed to be.
Yeah, it looks very much like it, doesn't it?
It's quite an interesting play on the idea of Westworld, because that's a period when a sort of overclass of horrible, bossy people basically, manipulate and rule over a class of others that they see as less than human.
It's kind of ultra Westworld.
It's ultra Westworld, so it's a really interesting choice. Equally though, you can see why guests would want to go there. They can go and hunt, big game. They can also, have all the things from Westworld, kill people, do horrible things, but then stay
all that lovely stuff.
But stay in a nice hotel.
Yeah, quite actually. Yeah,
that was always my thing with Westworld. It looks horrible to stay in.
I like the idea that this is a solution to those people who want to go out and kill animals for sport, by the way, which is a thing that we see now. I'm not convinced that this would ring their bells. I think if they knew they were killing I think they want to kill something real. Hopefully I'm wrong. Anyway.
No, but I know what you mean, because if a tiger's been programmed to be hunted, is it going to be less of a challenge than a real tiger? Equally though, maybe in this future world there aren't any tigers. Maybe these are the only tigers.
Yeah, true. We don't know. Yeah, we don't know what year. We've probably shot them all by now. So this is the only option.
This is the only way.
Yeah.
we can scratch that itch.
Talking of animatronic animals, the thing that occurred to me as well was, God, building an elephant.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work.
I like to think the really overworked and underappreciated departments building elephant consciousness.
Oh, I've got the elephant again, have I?
Oh no.
Well, not the consciousness so much,
just
body.
the physical thing of it. I'm sure it's 3D printed, but they must need a massive rig.
I suppose.
All those big circular things.
Probably, but I suppose it's more of the same, yeah. But anyway, those scenes, we should talk about those scenes.
Yeah, so we basically see a young woman whose name I've forgotten.
Katja Burgers, I think she's...
Is that the actor?
That's the actor.
Yeah.
I don't know the character's name.
Yeah, and then she basically meets up with this sort of dashing British type who's very appropriate in the area. And they sort of have a weird sort of flirtation where they're not sure if either of them's a host, and then they sort of shoot each other, and it turns out that neither of them are, or maybe she is. I mean,
she is no longer interested in doing it with hosts, because I don't know, maybe the thrill, there's no thrill in that anymore. She wants to make sure that he is indeed real.
It's like the thing we said with the tiger, if it's built in,
exactly.
Where's the thrill of the chase?
So she shoots him to prove to herself that he's not a host. And there's a little tease for a second where, because we know that in certain parts of Westworld, or certain parts of Delos world, the overall park situation, the guns now work on humans. He rolls over and you think he's dead for a second. He's not, he's just stung. But later on the guns do start to work.
Yeah, jump forward, they're about to hunt this tiger, and they notice that all the other humans are dead, and he's like, oh, they can't hurt us. And then he gets hurt, so shall we say. He gets shot by one of them.
in the chest, doesn't he?
He gets a baddie, he gets an ouchie in his innards.
A boo-boo, yes.
Yeah. But I mean, that's not the only interesting thing there. I mean, obviously it ends with a very cool moment with...
so she's then on the run from this tiger.
Which kind of is interesting in terms of, I'm not sure whether that's the tiger doing what it's programmed to do, or finally we're seeing an animal rebel, because we were I feel like we were talking about the horses another week.
Yeah.
I'm trying to work out why
the man in black's horse that he likes to talk to. Is it his friend? Is it,
exactly.
Is it aware now?
Yeah,
as much as a horse is aware.
That's the thing. So I don't know whether this is the tiger just tigering, or doing what Tiggers do.
Yeah.
Or he's actually sort of trying to be a bit aggressive like the hosts are. But either way, she kind of ends up running away from it, and it seems like she's kind of met her striker.
Yeah, well,
maker.
it's kind of like she shoots it as it takes her off a cliff
pretty
kind
cool.
of thing into the water.
It's a cool moment.
It's a bit CGI, the tiger. I found the tiger, like, I don't know.
I mean, it probably wasn't really there with that. I mean, movie magic.
You may have a point, yeah.
But there was another thing that you were quite interested
Get a guy
in.
in a tiger suit. But yeah, so she's taken off, and shall we just go through to her final, to what happens to her at the end? So we'll jump straight to the end now, which is we see the kind of tiger that's been washed up on the shore of the lake, which is the Bengal tiger that we
saw in a previous episode.
They referenced in the first episode, and she's dragging herself out of the water. She survived, it hasn't. But then she finds herself looking up, and she's at the feet of one of the Ghost Nation, or a couple of them, I think.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen to her next? Who knows? May not be good.
It seems like Rajworld isn't very big either, because she only ran for a few minutes and then she was already out of it.
That's true, actually. And she
it's very near to Westworld.
Yeah, and she immediately went into a bit that clearly wasn't supposed to be part of Rajworld, because it was concrete and,
Maybe it's new. Maybe it's a new bit.
Yeah, maybe they're just trying it out.
Yeah, it's a franchise. My final point would be, my final Rajworld point, I loved seeing another update of a classic rock song. Because first series was all about, in Westworld, they had like
the
pianola versions of Painted Black and stuff, and this time we had a sitar version of Seven Nation Army. Yes. Which I rather enjoyed. So I'll be listening to that for next week.
So it's really an episode of reunions, this one, I think. So to start with Charlotte and Bernard, we see her in the modern timeline. Yes. So we know that actually, we wondered last week whether she might bit the dust, but she's back.
I think that was back in episode 1.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, basically we thought that Charlotte might be gone because she had, she wasn't with Bernard in the most far forward timeline. Yeah. We need to find names for this. The future and the present. Okay.
I'm calling it now.
Now.
Yeah.
Okay, so in now, she's not there, so we thought maybe, how do they get separated? It turns out that they just kind of separate and she goes off and does her own thing and assumes he's going to die. Yeah. But it is kind of interesting to have the series tease us like that, I think. It's the thing we talked about in other weeks, I can't remember, about basically...
There've only been 2 so far.
Yeah, one of those many weeks, about how the series doesn't have its shock timelines anymore. It doesn't have the surprise, actually this is in the past, but it does
still have... those little teasers, yeah.
It has an interesting way to play with format, because we see that actually in their sort of slightly past storyline, don't we? So they're going after Abernathy, Dolores' dad, who has some important data in his head for Delos to sell. And they sort of, in the course of that, they sort of try and rescue him from some bandits. And then in that moment, they kind of end up sticking their dongle into one of the sort of pre-programmed Westworld villains, whose name I can't remember.
Well, that's what they're built for.
Moustache Joe, Trevor from Grand Theft Auto, if you're a game fan. And he's always been horrible, and they just sort of like turn up his
compassion and turn up his sharp shooting ability.
Yeah, so he's
like the most compassionate sharpshooter in the West or something.
Yeah, he does a bit of that, and that's actually quite cool. And that's an interesting thing with the timelines, because in the very first episode, I saw him in the background complaining when the Delos goons were shooting women, saying like, "You can't shoot a woman," and I was like, that seems a bit out of character, and it annoyed me. But obviously, they were ahead of me.
You've been annoyed all that time.
I've been fuming
but now,
for weeks,
and now I feel really relaxed now.
I'm more annoyed. I'm annoyed at myself for not believing in Westworld. But yeah, so that's an interesting example. But also, I think it's kind of quite an intriguing proposition. The hosts are sort of awake now, is the idea, or at least most of them are. But they can still change who they are with the flick of a button. So it's kind of like, to what extent is that still humanity, I guess?
Yeah, true. I mean, early on, we saw Maeve make a decision to make herself smarter, make herself stronger, and all that kind of stuff.
And it's interesting, though, to the extent to which...
But maybe it's the same as us taking certain mood-altering drugs or going to the gym.
Yeah, I was going to say doing a few crunches.
Yeah.
Basically the same thing.
Wouldn't it be great if you could just instantly go six-pack?
Yeah, that would be awesome. It's interesting, though. I mean, as well, there's a difference, I think, between being like, I'm smarter now, and being like, I am now a completely different person. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, if that's central to your character, and you kind of wonder, whether that'll happen to any other Westworld characters we know a bit better. Could someone turn Maeve down again, basically? Could someone, make Dolores...
Turn it down a bit, love.
Yeah, could someone make Dolores very sleepy at all times? The possibilities are literally endless. So our next, and I was going to say more straightforward reunion, because it is just sort of happening in the past, present. You know, it is the first time the characters have seen
So
each other for a
straightforward.
while, is Bernard and Dolores. But then equally, it's also not straightforward again, because I'm not 100% if Bernard and Dolores have never quite met on equal terms. He hasn't seen her since he was programming her and thought he was a human, and now she knows that he is not only a host, but he's also
she
Arnold.
immediately knew that, didn't she?
Yeah, so that's quite interesting. I couldn't remember if they'd actually run into each other since he'd found out.
I don't think so.
Not in a sort of proper conversation anyway. I guess she
She's
wasn't really having
She's
any.
got some kind of host star.
Yeah, a
Hodor. No, I don't know.
HBO crossover.
Yeah, but she can. It seems like some hosts can spot other hosts versus humans, and others can't, basically.
Yeah. So, for example, like earlier on, we mentioned Abernathy. He seems to be, tied up with a bunch of humans. So, do the other hosts think he's a human?
Yeah.
Similarly to Bernard, maybe. I don't know. Maybe there's this little button in them that makes.
Or are
them
they
read
still
human.
doing a storyline where they just think everyone's a host?
That's a good point. That's a good point, yeah. I mean, I guess if they don't 100% understand what a host is, they might just react to everyone the same way.
But anyway.
Speaking of those sort of people, though, this is an episode where we saw Dolores kind of recruit some of the Confederados last week, and this week she goes up to meet their dear leader and sort of recruit them.
Kind of like
more.
take over, basically.
Basically take over, yeah.
She that fort is now hers. She's convinced him through talking and hitting that she should be their leader, and his soldiers should be part of her, or his army should be part of her sort of force.
Yeah. And then she sort of she uses them to fight off Delos, who have come in their droves to
with machine guns
to take back Abernathy on the orders of Charlotte.
Yeah,
Hale.
But the Delos troops are kind of they're caught by surprise, aren't they? Because they're fully armed with modern weapons, and there's a few Confederate soldiers and so on. But actually, she's used their brains. They've put nitro in 3 places, and they blow them up. And
I have a question about the nitro. Why is the nitro real? Why does it work? Because I feel like in Series 1, I definitely remember the Man in Black using some explosive cigars or whatever, but he had to request, and then they actually just blew something up and they pretended that they were explosive.
That's an interesting question.
So I don't really understand why the nitro is nitro.
The nitro it was host nitro, and now
the nitro has come away.
Its explosiveness now.
Yeah, because I feel like
works.
that's one of the things where, definitely Westworld's safety policies are absurd in that they didn't just make guns that couldn't kill anyone and the hosts would feel like they were dead.
Yeah.
They made guns that would kill
that,
people, but only turned killy when they pointed at hosts. So it's much easier. If you stood behind a host,
someone flicks the wrong button and you're back in the in the tech place and you're sort of dead.
Exactly, and that's the thing with this host nitro. Anyway, they did use the nitro, whether it makes sense or not. And Dolores ended up but then after that, Dolores ended up betraying her new allies very quickly.
Yeah, she was brutal, wasn't she? She kind of said, not everyone deserves to live.
Not everyone deserves to get to the valley
She
beyond,
shuts the
basically.
gates, and there are a load of these Confederado soldiers outside, and they are just shot down by the Delos people.
And by Dolores's weird mask.
Later on, when they've won, they come. Her masked personal guard kind of come out and start shoving bayonets in them, don't they? Make sure they're dead.
I don't really understand it. I mean, it sort of does tie in with, we saw that way back in episode 1, we saw that scene of she kills the Native American guy and says something similar, like not everyone deserves to make it.
I mean, she did have some pretty bad run-ins with the Confederados earlier on, didn't she?
That's true, in Series 1 you mean?
When they were hanging around with Prince Caspian and stuff. In fact, did he put a knife in her and sort of when they were around? So maybe it's just a grudge. Maybe she's saying they don't deserve it because she knows how some of them have behaved as hosts. Does that make sense? Would she think that? I don't know.
I don't know. It's unclear, but it might turn up in other episodes.
But anyway, and at the end of that, Charlotte escapes with Abernathy.
Yes, who Dolores had just reunited with, pretty much.
Yeah.
And actually, I kind of loved this little scene because we've said before that Dolores seems a bit sort of, not robotic exactly, but she's a bit hard to read this series. What was she before? What is she now? She's suddenly become this person, and we never really met that person before.
Yeah.
We always saw a sort of a mask on her. But actually, I kind of felt like I got more of a sense of her when she was talking to Abernathy, because she still sees him as her father.
Yeah,
She still loves him, and she kind of sees what the humans have done to him as monstrous. And in a way, that's true if you assume that they can. He was one of the first hosts to start to realise something was wrong.
Yeah.
If you remember.
And she remembers those, getting up in the morning, seeing him on the porch, getting a coffee kind of thing.
And then getting shot by guests.
Yeah.
Happy times, happy
brilliant.
days. But yeah, he gets taken away. But then interestingly, in the most present timeline, which we also sort of jump to, Charlotte doesn't have him again.
She seems to be looking for him again.
Yeah, so
something's gone wrong there.
Yeah, they are such butterfingers, Delos. So yeah, it's an interesting storyline. I'm kind of not a huge fan of the Confederados, all that stuff. I don't get them. I don't get how they maybe know that they're hosts and maybe don't. And I'm kind of glad that.
So you were kind of cheering probably when they were getting bayoneted.
I mean, I wasn't sorry. I mean, it sort of simplifies things a bit. I kind of find it quite weird, the idea that all these characters are out still in the park doing their own little storyline.
A lot of powerful people through history have thought, this just simplifies things a bit.
This is definitely me becoming a megalomaniac.
But I also wanted to ask, so those spooky personal guards they remind me of like a really low-tech version of the Imperial Guard in around the Emperor in Star Wars.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Just with like t-shirts around their faces.
Yeah, who are they?
Yeah, so we talked about this before we started filming, because I'd sort of forgotten this as well, but I'm pretty sure the idea was that in Series 1, Wyatt, who turned out to be Dolores, was this sort of mysterious villain with a connection to Teddy, and his men were like, they'd given up God. They like decorated themselves with like animal heads and like covered their faces and wore weird masks and stuff. I mean, it turns out that Dolores is Wyatt and so on. So I'm guessing they're just the sort of pre-programmed crazy Wyatt soldiers who are still.
I wonder what's under those masks. I wonder if they have real faces.
Or maybe they'll be like the drone hosts. That would be cool. You know what I mean? The white drone.
Oh, the white, just with the rubber suits.
Yeah. Imagine that. They take it off. They didn't bother. They didn't finish them.
Well, exactly. That's what I think. Oh, they would though, wouldn't they? Because if in the real game, but was Wyatt in the real game?
I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. Well, maybe we'll see behind one of those masks sometime. That would be interesting.
It would indeed.
So as we said, a lot of reunions in this one, and another reunion you might say was Bernard and Abernathy. And the interesting thing about that, I suppose, was Bernard is trying to crack what's inside his head.
Yeah, the massive sort of data cloud or whatever that Delos have hidden in there, which they hid in their last series, masked by this sort of paper-thin veneer of his old character and his old role.
And he has a lot of trouble getting in there. It looks like he's not going to get past the encryption, but then somehow, I'm not sure how, he does.
He does manage, and it's not exactly clear what he sees, because it's sort of all kind of hell breaks loose and he gets taken away. But you spotted something.
I saw something.
Which I'm very impressed by, because I did not spot it, and I watched the episode a couple of times to prep.
Yeah, so you may have noticed, when that file first downloads, we see a shot of Bernard's screen, and there's a kind of quite distinctive symbol on there. It's two kind of interlocking triangles, rhombuses perhaps, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I spotted a very similar looking diagram in the notebook of the Rajworld lady.
Yes, her official title.
Yeah, Rajworld lady. And she's noted it down. It looks like something she was interested in. It looked kind of like on the notebook as if it was somewhere on a map.
Yeah, it was interesting because I'd seen her looking at that notebook and I thought, it's some sort of location she's trying to get to. But yeah, if it's also something to do with this data, I mean, this could be that's why she was there. Maybe she was another bit of corporate espionage. Maybe she's from a competitor trying to find out what this data is. But I don't know why you just have it in a little notebook or why she was in Rajworld in the first place. Maybe she was always intending to kind of slip over that water and get into Westworld.
I guess you have it in a notebook for authenticity. Because
she wanted to
carrying a tablet around Rajworld would not, it wouldn't work.
Yeah, so there's clearly, this is kind of, Abernathy's almost a bit of a MacGuffin in this series, isn't he? He's a thing that lots of people seem to want to get, and the data seems to be the only thing that Delos is actually interested in. They sort of said in previous episodes. So, I mean, we're assuming it's just a massive customer data that we sort
Maybe there's more to it than that.
Yeah,
I mean,
there
special,
usually is.
Yeah, let's sort of hope there is. But yeah, it's you don't do a special little diagram like that, cool little diagram without there being something more behind it than data, like what your shopping preferences and stuff, hopefully.
Yeah, well, remember last time they sort of had a weird, mysterious diagram. It turned out to just be like, the hosts just need to find out who they are.
Okay, well then, in that case, maybe it's nothing.
So our final reunion of the week, which features guest introducer Hector from this episode, is Maeve's crew run into Armistice, who's the very cool outlaw who we met in series 1 with the
snake tattoo lady,
and random technicians Felix and the other guy, who I want to say is called Art or something.
Calling him Grenade from now on.
Yes. Before we get to that, basically what happens is we see Maeve, Hector and Lee Sizemore are sort of walking around trying to find Maeve's daughter.
I love Lee Sizemore and his donkey.
Yeah,
just like his ridiculous sort of hat and them just making him drag a donkey for no reason. I don't think it's carrying anything, is it?
It's just for authenticity.
Just to make you, well, it's to kind of like put him in his place, isn't it?
Basically, yeah, he's like their servant. And they run into some Ghost Nation warriors and they basically are going to leave him alone, but they want him. And basically Maeve
everybody wants Lee.
Everyone wants Lee, yeah. And it's not really exactly clear why, but I assumed it was because he's a human and they want their own kind of revenge on humans, or it could just be that they really like his hat. I don't know. I mean, like we said earlier, we're a little unclear on whether the hosts actually understand what hosts are.
But you're right, you know, that they could be ones who, they spot him with that host star.
Yeah.
There's a better word for that. We're going to come up with a better word for that.
I don't think we will.
All right, we'll just stop using that though anyway. But they recognise him, we think, probably.
Yeah. And then basically they all run away from these Native American people and they end up underground in another base, which is where they run into Armistice, who has a dragon, which is a flamethrower.
I love that.
We saw her...
Hector thinks it's a dragon.
She was actually in a post-credit scene at the end of Series 1 surviving because it seemed like she died, but she ends up pulling her arm out of a door or something.
She's pretty hardcore, isn't she?
Yeah.
You would want her on your side, I think.
You definitely would. And then
maybe
also,
hard to control though.
Yes, and then we end up running into those technicians again. So if you don't remember, they're the people who inadvertently helped Maeve sort of come alive last year. And I kind of felt like we'd seen the last of them last series, so I'm quite surprised that they've
You were happy with that, weren't you?
I kind of was. Like, I have nothing against them. It was quite a nice little story, but I feel like it feels a bit random that they'd just be in this other bit of the park and they'd turn up and they'd suddenly be back with Maeve.
I think as Dolores realised though, it's useful to have a tech person with you.
Yeah, she's
someone
got that.
who can kind of do the stuff with the iPad and
she's got that little
or
guy
other tablets
wandering around with her, doesn't she? So I guess it is kind of handy. That was quite a cool thing as well, the grenade thing that you said.
Yeah.
Where the one guy has the grenade under his chin and he has to basically keep it there, otherwise it's going to blow up.
Because to start with, I was like, what if they lobotomized him or something? He can't. It's like this, and he can't speak anymore. And then I realised it's because of that.
It's weirdly evocative because I just think of that. Like it just makes me wonder how I do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I had exact same thought. Like, how much pressure do you have to put on that?
Yeah.
And for how long? And would I just go? I think I'll just explode. It'd be easier.
Or just try and sort of body pop it off. Just sort of like.
Oh, nice. No, I would not do that. No way. That's not going to go far enough.
No, probably not. I mean, you never know, though. I mean, a bit of momentum.
You never know. That's
know.
a good thing to think when you're trying to get rid of a live grenade.
Anyway, they end up teaming up with those guys again, which is cool. And like we say, Armistice is back, which is always a good thing. We did see her in a little flashback last week, I suppose, when she was a sort of sheriff in one of the earlier timelines. But now she's back. And then, basically, after all that Rajworld fun, it seems like we are finally going to get Shogunworld.
Yeah, they're walking around at night. There's snow. They start to walk into snow, don't they? There's a pile of snow. And who pulls that head out of the snowdrift?
As Lee Sizemore pulls it out, and he immediately knows what's happening. He knows where they're headed, and he's like, "Oh no, this is even worse than I expected." Basically, he's like, "We have to go." And then suddenly we see this samurai or ninja or ronin or whatever run out of the dark to attack them, and then that's the end of their storyline.
Yeah, and that's a nice cliffhanger, isn't it? Because a lot of people have been wanting to see Shogunworld for a long time.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a kind of, I think, Akira Kurosawa kind of thing, where it's like those were those films that like the Magnificent Seven were based on. Like, there's always been this fun relationship between westerns and samurai films.
I almost feel like they might have left. I don't know. Like have they built up too much? I'm not sure, but it could almost get a bit too cartoony. That final scene was almost like a comedy to me.
I guess if you think of Westworld as a sort of exaggerated Old West, though, I think it maybe Samurai World or Shogun World rather is going to be the same. So we'll be back next week to find out what's going to happen in Shogun World and or Westworld and or Rajworld and or Hemsworld, the fictional Hemsworth-themed park we invented. In the meantime, be sure to check out our Westworld coverage on radiotimes.com, the home of TV entertainment news, and goodbye.